I feel like three things are certain in life: death, taxes, and talks of a supercar street circuit in Perth. All jokes aside, there have been many rumours that Supercars is seriously exploring a street circuit in Western Australia, potentially to open the 2026 championship. And as a local Perth resident, I am genuinely excited by some of the rumours we're hearing about this event. So today, I want to pitch to you why I think it would be a great improvement on the current event we have at Wanneroo Raceway, and actually then explore some of the street track concepts I've come up with around Optus Stadium. So let's start by exploring why I think this is such a good idea. Now, I want to introduce the proposed location. For those that aren't familiar with Perth, it's the Optus Stadium precinct, which is located here, just east of Perth CBD, over the river, in an area that's pretty much becomes Perth's playground. You've got WA's biggest stadium in the northern end, you've got the Crown Casino on the southern end, and a whole bunch of underutilized parkland and roads in the middle. And in terms of street circuits, this is just a Goldilocks location. It's close enough to the Perth city to showcase it and have it in the background of all the hero shots, but the track isn't actually in the city and disrupting it, which, as we've seen with Newcastle, is often the downfall of these kinds of events. From a fan perspective as well, it's a lot more accessible than Wanneroo Raceway, which is about 40 minutes north of Perth's CBD, and quite a trek for anyone that does live south the river. The Optus Stadium complex, however, is pretty much as central as you can get in Perth. It's easy to get to from the north, south, and east, but it's got great public transport as well, which is something that can't be said for the current events in Wanneroo, and as a result, I'm sure that would encourage far more casual or potential fans to give the event a shot. Of course, it's not just about the event logistics, the racing side of things has to be good as well, and I think this area could check that box too. There's loads of open space to work with, so we could be looking not just at a traditional street circuit, but potentially a hybrid circuit where you've got some purpose-built sections in there as well. Then, of course, you do need a lot of infrastructure to put on an event like this, and this area really ticks a lot of boxes there too. You've got the stadium, which can be used to host big concerts after the race, especially if it's at the start of the season during our summer. And then thanks to the casino, you've got accommodation, rooms for corporate functions, you could host the media and medical centers in there. There's just so many facilities already in place. And while of course there's always a huge amount of work involved in a street circuit, I really do feel like they have a massive head start compared to starting from scratch. Now, before we look at my track concepts, there is one more factor that I think fuels the reasoning for a street circuit in Western Australia, and that's the fact that the WA government supports bringing supercars out over here. I don't know what that relationship is like or how much is invested, but they invest in bringing the sport over to help promote Western Australia as a tourism destination. The question I have is, what's their return on investment? How many fans travel to watch supercars around Barbagallo? I really don't think it's all that many. And on top of that, who at home watches supercars around Wanneroo Raceway on TV and thinks, I need to visit Perth? I really don't think it's selling the state all that well. The Optus Stadium precinct, however, truly I think is one of the most beautiful parts of Perth and a fantastic platform to help promote not only the city, but WA as a whole to potential tourists. All right, let's get to the fun bit of the video and actually explore some track concepts that I've come up with in this area. Now, a quick disclaimer, as with any street circuit, naturally roadworks would have to take place in terms of removing traffic islands and potentially widening some roads here and there. But nothing I'm proposing today I feel is beyond the realms of possibility. Starting with this idea, a 4.3 kilometer course in a clockwise direction. This one gets underway in the Crown Casino car park with a short run to the first corner, which is around a sort of 100-degree left-hander. You climb a hill a little bit actually into turn 2, and then you follow with another right-hander, turn 3, that sets you down the Great Eastern Highway. This would be a wide and fairly high-speed section of the racetrack that should set up overtaking opportunities into turn 4, which is again quite a wide junction, so you could really play with the exact angle of that corner and again hopefully promote some good overtaking. Once you're through turn 4 though, you enter a windy section of road that I'm sure will have a few corner numbers in it as well, but it should be a flat out section along the banks of the Swan River, and that takes you up to your next big braking zone by Optus Stadium, and again I think this would be a good overtaking opportunity. After that, we have a sequence of S's in the road that are already there and I've long looked at as a great piece of potential racetrack. And once you're through that one, you make another right-hander onto what would be the back straight, if you will. And once you get to the end of that one, you've once again got a bit of a hairpin complex here that actually goes downhill a little bit and then wind your way back down through the car park. The last corner wouldn't be all that exciting, pretty much a 90-degree left-hander, but I feel like there's plenty of more interesting parts of this track to compensate for it. All right, in terms of the pros of this course, it uses pretty much all existing roads, so you wouldn't have to lay any tarmac from scratch, which differs from the next two track concepts I'm going to share with you. It's just a matter of sort of identifying the exact angles each of these corners would be. The other positive is that I feel like we've got a really convenient pit lane location here, at least from the perspective of Supercars. In the Crown Casino car park, they've got lots of space to work with. They could easily park the transporters in there. So from a logistical perspective, I feel that would work well. From a racing perspective, this layout also actually has a bit of elevation at play, especially in those final few corners. So I think that will help spice it up because we don't often see too many street circuits with interesting elevation. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. In fact, I don't think this track would be viable, partially because it goes down the Great Eastern Highway, which is a key road in Perth, a vital link to the CBD, and I just don't think they would allow that level of disruption. That said, you could bypass it by turning right as your first corner and widening some of those roads around the casino to cut out the Great Eastern Highway, so that's a potential alternative. But I still don't think it would get around the second issue, which is the fact this course completely traps and surrounds the casino and also the residents there towards the top of the map. That severing of both the residents and the casino from the rest of Perth would just be too much of a logistical headache to manage. So I think that alone would take this map or this track out of contention. My second course here moves into more of that hybrid street circuit space. It's a 3.1 kilometer layout in an anti-clockwise direction. And this one would see the Supercars pit lane move to a permanent section of track purpose built near the Crown Casino in the parkland there. That would be a fairly short straight leading you into the first corner off to the left, at least in my concept, and I've actually backed that up with a right-hander as turn to an almost hairpin-esque corner to try and promote some good overtaking. After that, you've got your final bit of purpose-built racetrack, which leads you up to turn 3 and back onto existing roads. You've got a 90-degree right-hander that comes up quickly as turn 4, a bit of a short straight again into turn 5 before turn 6 leads you and feeds you back onto the long back straights. That sends you down to turn 7, which is a nice wide piece of road and I think would really encourage some good overtaking. And after that, you go through that S's section we talked about earlier, just in the other direction. And I think that could still set up some late dive bombs into turn 10, which would be a left-hander, before you finish up with a pretty much 90-degree, fairly basic left-hander at turn 11 to finish up the lap. Now, the pros of this design is that it would greatly reduce impacts on the local area compared to the previous layouts. It's no longer going down the Great Eastern Highway, so a big check in that department. And it also doesn't completely surround the Crown Casino, which I think will be really important when the track is being built and deconstructed. It's obviously a hybrid circuit as well, so by utilizing some of this parkland, you can have some clear overtaking locations that are purpose built to try and encourage some of that good racing. In terms of the downsides of this track from a planning perspective, while you're no longer impacting the casino as much, you are still surrounding that little residential community. You can see slap bang in the middle of the track there. So that's obviously going to introduce quite a few planning headaches. And then more from a racing perspective, the track does feel a little bit on the pokey side, doesn't it? There's not a huge amount of sort of high speed sections. It's medium speed at best for the majority of it. And while there's still a few key overtaking locations, I still think we can go a little bit better, which brings us to my third and final concept. So this is it. This is the layout I would love to see get turned into reality. It gets underway once again by the Crown Casino, a 2.9 kilometer course in an anti-clockwise direction. The first corner is still that same left-hander, but that's where things start to switch up. We spend a lot more time on purpose-built sections of racetrack in this layout. Turn 2 is again quite a tight corner off to the left this time to try and promote some good overtaking. Turns 3 and 4 are a double apex right-hander before you enter the sweeper of turn 5. And once you get to turn 6, you start rejoining the existing existing roads. You wind your way through turn 7, which features in all my track maps today, and up to turn 8, where the road really widens up, a bit like the old run onto the Adelaide back straight. Once you get to 9 and 10 though, it gets a bit more like a traditional street circuit, quite technical, quite tight, and I think this would really help showcase the skill of the drivers. You actually go downhill a little bit into turn 11. You go through a short tunnel, in fact, under the road there at turn 12, before a little flick chicane 13 and 14, and then up to another section inspired by the Adelaide 500, the staircase section at 15 and 16, before a medium length straight up to the final corner at 17. So why do I think this is the winning layout? Well, for a start, it's not impacting the local area quite as badly. We're not cutting off the casino. We're not cutting off that residential suburb I highlighted earlier. We're making a lot more use of the parkland here. And that's the second key benefit of this layout, is the fact you've got lots of flexibility. I've proposed a layout from turns 1 to 6 there. But with all that open space, you could pretty much design anything, and I'm sure someone with far better track design knowledge than me could really create something quite special in there. That being said, you still have the challenges of a traditional street circuit, especially from turn 9 onwards, where things get really tight and technical, and overall it's just a stunning location. This whole track would have views of Optus Stadium, the casino, the Perth skyline. I think it would look fantastic and be a good fan experience as well. In terms of downsides, this track would by far require the most amount of new tarmac to be laid down, not just in that parkland area, but also from turns 11 onwards. It is quite a solid surface there at the moment, but it's more designed for pedestrians, so I imagine they'd have to address that. Just after turns 13 and 14, you definitely have to widen that road, and the link between 15 and 16, you'll actually have to build a new bit of road there to link those sections. So definitely a lot of investment in new tarmac in this layout, but I really do think it could be worth it for the racing. And on the topic of racing, I must admit I do feel like the tunnel section from turns 9 onwards may be a little bit of wishful thinking on my part. I do think it's wide enough to get the supercars through there. It's certainly a lot wider than the castle section at Baku, but it is a bit of a weird little offshoot, I think, just to promote some of those technical sections that I do tend to love in supercar street circuits. That can easily be addressed though. Here's an altered version of the layout where we actually go off to the left at turn 9 rather than the right. It does shorten the circuit, it does remove some of the character and elevation in my opinion, but it could be a more realistic alternative. So they are just some of my track concepts for a potential Perth Street Circuit. I'd love to know what you think about the different layouts in the comments section below. I do want to recognize that the move from a permanent track to a street circuit is always controversial in any form of motorsport, but I do personally have quite a soft spot for street circuits, especially in supercars. So I respect I'm probably more on the optimistic end of the spectrum in this whole discussion. And of course, I would love to see facilities like Wanneroo and Collie, which is another track here in WA, continue to get the investment they deserve. All that being said, I do love this concept of a street circuit near Optus Stadium. I feel like it makes a lot of sense on multiple levels, and it's a story I will continue to follow very closely. Until the next video though, remember to treat people like your trackside, and I will see you in the next one.